the 4 directions helps me to establish my bubble of perception. My bubble of perception is something that the more present I am, the more deliberate I am. So what does that require? Well, warrior principles, dissolving self-importance. Is the why directly associated to self-importance? I don't consider feeling appreciation and the quality of the present moment to have anything to do with self-importance. That's spirit importance, if anything. Like that's the importance of being alive as a human being. Like we have this capacity. Like why the heck wouldn't we take advantage of that? Like isn't it stupid to live our lives the way that we live them, knowing that we can, in Donna's words, we have the opportunity. We have all of this opportunity to interact with these feelings that we've described, not abstract ideological mumbo jumbo. No, we can pinpoint these feelings. What does peace feel like? Boy, it feels like harmony. It feels like, oh, what does peace feels like? Have you ever been new at something like maybe rollerblading or riding a bicycle? This is my Dantian feeling too, because that's where I put peace. So if someone is like, well, what does the Dantian feel like, Ernest? It feels like you're about to lose your balance, but then you regain. It's that second after you have fully regained and you just feel, oh, whew, that feeling of that regained from the imbalance. We've all felt that in some way, like it was rollerblading or, you were about to fall out of a chair and then all of a sudden you caught yourself. It's that stillness in that exact moment. If you can grab onto that stillness, that's what we're talking about. That's the
Holy
feeling for it.
mackerel. I can't believe you just said that. I just a couple of days ago, I have crows. I have this whole relationship with crows. I'm not going to waste your time on the story, but they came to say they were ready to eat. And so I grabbed a big jar that I have that has bird food in it, and I scooped some out, and I was going to put it on my railing, but then the squirrels get there. And so there's a stump out back. When I was walking out to the stump, and there's a very steep little short-lived little hill to get to the stump. And I was barefoot. I think I was even in my pajamas because I don't care about being outside in my pajamas. And I was taking small steps. I was aware of what I was doing and I had my hands out in this balance. And the grass was slippery. And I slid and I started to pitch forward as if I was going to fall. And I did fall to one knee because it was very steep. And, but found my balance in that position, slid to the bottom just in time to put my opposite foot down and stand. And I did not spill the jar of stuff and I didn't spill anything in my hand. I'm 66 years old. you know, I should have been ass over teacup, going down that hill. And I landed and I stood on my feet and I was like, I had that exact feeling. I was like, wow, I really wish somebody filmed me doing that because I was able to coordinate a bunch of very delicate um, things that involved balance and coordination in a short amount of time as I was falling forward. And it felt, I was like proud of myself in that moment, but it just gave me that feeling that you're talking about, that regain of a temporary wobble that I could have, really gotten hurt. But I didn't, that getting hurt didn't come into my brain. The fall didn't come into my brain. It was the balance that came into my brain and the feeling of balance. And I don't know, not even balance, a lot of things. The feeling of all of those points of attention coming together in that moment to make that happen. And I knew that it was um, a bunch of things that I had been doing with my awareness prior to that that allowed that to occur in that way. In addition to, I don't know, spirit felt like that was involved also. That was one of the points of attention. And so I brought that feeling with me to other circumstances since then a lot of times. Like, you can do this. If you could do that, you could do this. It's just the same. The principles are all the same. So that's, I think that's what you were just illustrating with the
Mhm.
Dantian feeling. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just funny that I just experienced that.
you took it a step further, though. I was describing peace. You took it a step further and described personal power, I think. So the feeling that proud, that proud feeling is like, I did that. I did that. That's what personal power is. I did that. I did that. Intention and
It
will.
felt like I did that and that's available to me. So
Right,
let me,
right.
if I could do that, I couldn't even recreate that if I wanted to in a Tai Chi move. If I tried to do that, I don't think I could do it. It all had to do with intention, will, awareness, points of attention, all of, and the habit and momentum that came that moment, and that I was relaxed in my space and my connection and all of it. And so I wanted to bring that feeling of all those coordinating things to other things. And I have brought it to, anytime I felt some struggle or trying, I'm going to try to do that. Trying is just not anything. Don't try, just do. So do what you can. And it's that I can do that. I can get that feeling from this. I mean, I don't have to make everything some death-defying, parkour. I just
Hopefully
mean,
not.
I
It could be
can,
anything.
yeah, I can bring that to everything, that feeling.
You open the cabinet, something falls out, it's in your hand instantly because you just intention and will had a very tiny bridge to cross. And why did it have a very tiny bridge to cross? You pointed out because you were in a state of practice when that bridge needed when you approach that bridge. Okay, so let's I think I can tie this all in. So all of the things Ida was talking about, we're going to do formal meditation, we actually started talking about what source feels like and like what does peace feel like and what does personal power feels like, in terms of I did it in that moment, you just felt that like, ooh, I did that. Oh, Bob tried to scare me and I was so ready because I was distracted. I was looking at the sunrise while I was walking, and he just like jumped out at me. And oh, I was so ready though. I was so proud of because I was still practicing. My practice just happened to be focused on the sky and not Bob in front of me. So he got me. He surprised me. No, he totally got me. Yeah. No, he definitely got me. But I was ready. He saw my attack posture. He saw the eye of the tiger. Like I was ready in case he was like some villain trying to attack me. Fortunately, I recognized very quickly that it was Bob. But that leads me to I think the point. So we have when I describe the warrior's way, I don't really describe it to many people. And there's for a wide variety of reasons. One of the reasons, well, no, not really the reason, but one of the most important aspects to it is that there's again it's dualistic type of universe that we live in. But there's two fundamental aspects to how I approach this warrior's way. And you can replace the word warrior with sage. It's the person who is very deliberate, very intentional, very focused, very connected. All this stuff that we've been talking about, they're in it, right? Because they put themselves there. That's what we're doing, putting ourselves there. Would this be beneficial in warfare? Heck yeah. Like you want your soldiers to be there. You want them to be present. You want them to be peaceful. You want them to be as calm as possible right before they get into unimaginable horror. So yeah, that's typically why stuff like that, the art of war is, yeah, you can actually apply some of these principles. Like the best way to win a war is to not get in one. Stupid. Like the book says that. It doesn't say stupid, but it's like, yeah, best way to win a war is to never engage in warfare. And that's true. Like it's like, oh yeah, duh. So the bottom line, we have two different ways that we can approach it. For me, it's sequential and adaptable. So sequential, number one, death is my advisor. I have to feel appreciation a second after I wake up. That's my practice. You do you. Set yourself up however you see fit, you know. Don't do it exactly like I do it because that's weird. But I'm just giving you an example. Second one, the moment I open my eyes, I set up this longest reach, highest vision, yada, yada. And I do that because it brings me to appreciation for the most fundamental aspects. I'm alive. My eyes just opened. I have this body. I have this mind. I have this breath. Let's do it. And that gets me started. That's sequential. However, I have things that are more adaptive, such as losing self-importance. It's like, oh, Ernest, are you just thinking about yourself again? Here we go. You started to get out of balance. Let's go back to some redirection technique because you're just focused on you. Right? Everything's about you right now. So let's redirect that. So that's one example is self-importance. Another quick example, so because I don't have to, we don't have time to describe the whole thing, but another quick example of something that would be more of an adaptive technique is I find myself meandering in psychological time. And now I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to get off work. I just have so much to do. I failed my quit. And that's now future with past, ignoring the present. That's like, Ernest, so I need more, and that's going to be more of my redirection. And I'm never going to be void of this dynamic. I'm going to be 110 years old, hopefully, if I did my math right. And I'm going to be doing this to some extent. That's the idea, is there's always a blinder. There's always a reason for more self-awareness and self-discovery. And I'm applying that to everything because it's a principle. So it should be a part of everything else we're talking about. Okay, so that's all good. So we got something that's more sequential and then something that is a little bit more adaptive in terms of technique and warrior principles. Specifically, warrior principles is what I'm talking about. And then let's get back to that desire. So the heart's desire, if you don't know that, it's very difficult to line that up with intention because what's your intention if you don't know your desire? What were you doing? And you're like, I don't know. No, you do know. Like you were just doing something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was just doing it, man. That doesn't make sense. Like you were walking somewhere. Why were you walking there? I was just walking.
I have a quote for that, I think.
Oh, what's the quote?
My husband said the other day, if you don't know where you're going, all roads will take you there.
That's true. Any road can take you to nowhere. I mean, yeah. So, okay, let's
I love
then
you
take it.
freaking Irish people. You make
You got good
everything sound,
sayings. That's for sure.
yeah.
And all of our sayings, meanwhile, in America, just literally make no sense outside of our little circles. We can say some of the weirdest shit, and it's just like, the fuck? Okay, so let's just jump then. So we have I gave you the first in the sequence, and I'm going to give you one of the most important in the sequence, and it's the mood. And I couldn't, and this is what I really wanted to talk about this and end with this because I think this is what Donna, I want to make sure that what I'm talking about has to do with what you just talked about, obviously. Well, I think that the mood of the warrior is important. Maybe it's the most important thing I can do for myself throughout the day is to access this mood. And one of the ways that Don Juan describes the mood, and I think this is more of what you were describing than just peace. Peace was a prerequisite to that because you were doing your practice before that. You said that like you had some practice points, like there was some presence. So that's creating the peace, that's creating the space. Peace feels like a lot of space. The more space you feel, the more peace you feel. It's directly proportional. So we know what that feels like. I think what we were describing, so in Don Juan's book, basically Carlos is spooked by a natural like wild cat and he's in the middle of the dark and he bolts up a hill and he sees that hill during the day and he's like, no, he's like, I did not do that. And Don Juan's like, not only did you do that, you did it in the pitch dark. And he said any wrong step up that cliff, you would be dead. But you weren't. You did it. How did you do it? And it's his principle. It's the warrior spirit is controlled abandon. That's his words. Controlled abandon.
Love that.
And Carlos is like, that's stupid. So when I talk about my own scenarios, like a lot of times, like I was this Carlos figure. Like I would get something incredibly profound, And I would just be like, what a dumb thing to say. Reckless abandon, or controlled abandon. Like, you just said two
No, I
opposite
have to find
things.
a pen and write this
I'll,
down
I'll
on
tell
an
you again.
index card.
I'll tell you again. This one's not going anywhere. I can't forget this one. It's in his books. So, what is controlled abandon? And how can we apply that? Like, what does that mean?
It's like
So,
not
well,
having an
Don,
expectation for the outcome. Would that be right?
not having an expectation for the outcome. That sounds like abandon. Got it.
And yeah, it sounds like abandoned, but also it sounds like you don't really care for your own personal safety. But
That
in that
too.
moment, in that moment where Carlos was doing that, that's an instinctual spiritual thing that has
Mhm.
happened to him. So
That's an
obviously,
acute example, yes.
yeah, you're going to be guided anyway if you're open to that.
We could call that a burst of spirit, Ida.
Yeah.
Okay, but you only
To
gave me
me,
half of the equation
controlled
though.
abandon encapsulates that feeling that I was describing as seeing the duality and everything. Like, that's controlled abandon to me. That
Okay,
it's
I'm with it.
new and familiar. Like, okay, what's available in this space? It's so exciting and new and creative, and yet it's familiar, and it's the lining up of all those points.
Yeah. And I knew
I
that we
love
would
that term.
arrive at the abandoned really easy. Like, that we leaned into that quick. And no, I see your opposites. Like, you're talking about how they're the synthesis of opposites,
Yeah,
Donna.
but abandon could be reckless, and I
It
think
could be.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why controlled abandon is both. It's like two sides of the coin at the same time.
What does it look like? Like, what's this controlled part of it look like with the abandoned part? What does that look like?
Sounds like
Can you
there's a deliberate nature to it of some sort.
bingo? Like, that's it. There's a deliberate nature to our abandon. We're
He's
doing it
such a
on purpose.
genius, that Shayna.
Exactly. She's been listening to me a lot. Let's be honest. No, I'm just kidding. You can edit that out later. Yeah, let's not go
It's like
there.
going to a party and enjoying it, but not taking the drugs.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you some examples before we go of what I view as controlled abandon. Okay, I'm going to go to a party. Now, there's a lot of reasons that I want to go to this party, and I'm making this shit up. But no, I could actually apply this to some extent. Let's say when I graduate, okay? I should celebrate. Like this, it's an oh, I gotta tell you that before we go. Really important. I should celebrate, right? I deserve it, right? I've done a really hard thing. I've put in all of this work. Okay, I'm gonna go to this party, and I'm gonna go do this party thing, and I'm gonna worry about it the whole time, and I'm gonna get into a bad mood, and I'm gonna, of course not. It's controlled abandon. I'm gonna go to the thing. I'm just gonna do it. I'm going to let the wind take me. I'm going to be very present. I'm going to be very deliberate. I'm going to play it by ear. I'm doing the damn thing in a very controlled way. And controlled, we're putting that in air quotes because better is deliberate. I really like that better. And Ida said that word. And Shayna said that. It's very deliberate. It's very intentional. It's very on purpose to be here relaxed and create an opportunity for infinity and who knows what. It's both of those things happening at the same time. It's I put myself here to just see what happens. And whatever happens, happens, right? So one of the goals, one of the things that a hunter does, and we could talk about hunting because it has a different feeling to it because it's stalking yourself. So the hunter stalks themselves to perfect and to strike perfect from the word to purify, to refine spirit. Right? So they're doing that on purpose very deliberately. And I would never recommend such a thing if they're not solid in their principles in the first place. But this idea of hunting is combining these two things. Reckless, not reckless abandon. That's not what I meant. That's a Freudian slip. No, it's because you said it. You said the word reckless earlier. That's not Freudian. That's
Controlled
implanted. Yeah,
abandon.
controlled
I did say
abandon.
reckless. I said abandon can sound like recklessness.
Yeah. So if you go do something and you're not worrying about the outcome, you're just applying your principles and you're applying your practice, your entire practice is controlled abandon. And that creates a mood. I really like to talk about Andy Dufresne, because Andy Dufresne gave the perfect example, even if it's fictional, I don't care. You know, aspects of that story from Shawshank's Redemption movie has to be fictional. Of course, it's a movie, an adaptation from something that vaguely probably happened. But still, it was controlled abandon. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly how he was doing it. He had something happening behind the scenes, and he just walked as if he were in a park, even though it was a prison yard, slowly distributing that wall out of his pocket. Because remember, he was digging the hole in the wall and slowly distributing the pebbles through the prison yard, so that what else do you do with all that dirt if you're building a huge hole in the wall? Genius. Now, the other thing I'll say before we go, so the mood of the warrior is to create that idea, that spirit, that feeling of controlled abandon. Now, that's a mood, or it can be an acute thing. I think in the past we would call that flow state, intention and will, a very short stream between them. And then one of the things, Ida, is that in a meditation, what do I want? Well, it's a feeling. How do I want to get to that feeling? Well, that's usually the stuff of the meditation, right? It's either going to be sitting, or it's going to be standing, or you're going to be saying a mantra, maybe repeating a word, focusing on an image. You know, there's all kinds of ways that people have structured meditations, hopefully, so that you can arrive at a particular feeling. So that's how I approach all things. It's like, what's the feeling behind that? One of the things that we set up, or that I set up in the Warrior's Way, and it's somewhat more sequentially, is personal power. That's something I have to fill my bubble of perception with. Personal power. It's incredibly important to the things that I want to do. One of those things is called the act of impeccable intent. I am getting a degree and hopefully going to school just for the sake of personal power, controlled abandon. Everything else that happens in between, I never want to lose focus on the ultimate desire. The ultimate desire is to accumulate personal power through intention and will, with controlled abandon. So am I going to go to school worried? Am I going to go to school projecting into psychological time? Am I going to go into school, hopefully, not into me, and personal history and my story and all of that crap? Because that's all going to distract me. The thing I want to mention, because it relates to last week, and it's what I'll finish with, is the feeling of personal power can only be accumulated, it can only be utilized when you are paying attention to it. So when we say, I gained personal power, show me. Where is it? Oh, what do you mean? Well, you just said you gained something. You just said you accumulated something. You have more now than you had before, is what you're insinuating. Where does it go? It's spirit energy. That's convenient. So it is, actually. But it's also something physical, because it's your will, it's your actions, it's the things that you're doing. So that's a derivative, that's a byproduct of what. There's a tangible byproduct. The intangible byproduct is that spirit aspect. We got to put them both together. There's an intangible and a tangible byproduct, both of them, to make a new third thing. So I really want to underscore that if we want to accumulate the feeling of personal power, we have to be paying attention to the feeling of personal power. If you're not, if it doesn't exist, it's not occurring. Because how do we accumulate personal power? Awareness of intention, awareness of will, awareness of the desire completes that 3-point. I need to know. I need to know my desire. I need to know the intention behind what I'm doing to bring me closer to that desire. And then I have to have the energy flow, momentum. Because that's all I'm talking about, is the momentum of something. Don Juan describes the universe in terms of forces. And those forces are just energy momentum. It's the momentum of something, whether it's a collective momentum, an individual momentum. The momentum can seem abstract, like the wind, until it gains momentum and knocks you in the face. Enough momentum, right? But in an abstract way, you know, all of the movement of the atmosphere is all wind. I mean, it's moving atmosphere, wind. So there's different ways to see it, more physical, more rarefied at the same time. Put them together and you get the mood of a warrior, or the mood of the sage, the mood of the spirit. And you can use that mood then to stock yourself with personal power. You can only stock yourself with personal power, otherwise you'll leak power and it will injure the spirit. And that's a different talk. So I want
When
to
you can
reiterate.
see,
Yeah. Well,
sorry, when you can see the personal power in your own life by being consistent and using the doing part to gain the personal power, then seeing that everything is where you put it and your life was going along accordingly to the intention that you had for it, well, that grows the personal power more, and then other people can see that personal power. So it is visible eventually.
only if you're paying attention to it. Only if you're charging it in that moment.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense, Ida? But I agree with you completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Sometimes I don't have the words to say these things the way Donna does.
Mm-hmm. No, you said it perfect.
I'm not comparing, but
No.
I do feel that a person who has that intention and will in their daily life, you can't help but notice that their life and the surrounding of their life, and it's visible. The personal power is visible.
Yes, and the more aware of it that you are, the more consistent you can access that. The more consistently, and this is a great way to look at it. You don't have to, but conscious creation, everything that we're talking about is filling my bubble of perception. What do I fill it with? Do I fill it with desire? Do I fill it with intention? Do I fill it with will? Or do I just fill it with desire? Because that could end up chasing a lot of things. That would be weird. So I got to make sure that all of these things are harmonious so that I'm acting in a way that will get me to my ultimate goal, which is more appreciation, more quality. That's the quality word, which is the source word. That's another way I would describe the feeling of source. Feels like quality. The quality. And that's why I don't get bored. No, I'll find something. I mean, I'll just look at anything, the detail of the world. It reveals something new and something very familiar at the same time. So Ida, I think what you were saying was perfect. I'm just hoping to underscore, because as the reminder that I am, that we have to be very conscious of this process. Not necessarily thinking about it. That's different. Just aware of ourselves. So we talked about metacognition. With metacognition, you see your own personal power in real time because you're filling your bubble of perception with it. And we can easily get distracted from that, though. There's all kinds of things that can just pop up, and then before you know it, if I dropped out of the sky and I said, you know, were you just now paying attention to your own personal power? You'd be like, yes, I was. Because we can get distracted from it. And that's why I want to underscore that point, that it requires something, our attention. Abraham Hicks talked about that in every single, session that she would give. All of the gurus mention this in one way or another. We have to be, and I like the word charging it, giving it the energy it needs to exist is our attention and our awareness. And then if we're aware of that process, aware of our awareness, source, metacognition, quality, all of these things just usher themselves in. And then before you know it, it's like, if space junk fell from the sky right now, and I mean, that sucks because I want to feel this more, but I'm in it, right? This is how I want to spend my life. That's the ultimate desire, is to spend the life time, the bubble of one's life, fill that with as much quality. And that's the source. Fill it with as much source. And we could substitute those words with love. How I use the word. It has nothing to do with yeah. It's the unconditional factor. Can you remove other things and it still exists? Because then that's what we're talking about.
I'm finding removing the emotion from things, I don't mean that in a staid, non-compassionate way, but to remove the unnecessary emotion, probably the leaking power part of emotion, possibly the fear part of emotion. Then I can see Donna mentioned earlier about seeing the importance and the non-importance. I'm seeing that, for example, I'm using this as a very ordinary example. On days whenever I have decided that I'm fasting, and I might get the notion about dinner time, oh, I'd really like something because I'm cooking for my husband, but I'm not eating. And then I sort of say to myself, well, I've noticed that the days that I'm not fasting, I'm eating. And the days that I'm fasting and not eating, they're all the same and they all pass. I've got this feeling of sameness, but not in a boring way, but removing the emotion from it, removing the emotional memory from it of sitting down with them for a meal together. And I do be careful about that because I don't want to disconnect totally from that. And I mean, I have to eat it sometimes. So,
Yeah.
so I always get the opportunity to share a meal with my husband. But taking the emotional memory out of that has really helped with leaking power and going back into the habits of, saying to himself, well, really, I need to eat and it's important. And then I've got friends who say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And, to take the emotional stuff all out of that and just do, and then see how the same things are, seeing the duality in things like Donna described earlier. Sorry, I went off into a tangent there.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it will
Yeah,
bring
I
up
think you said it very well. The principles apply to all of it when you take like the ego out of it. I don't know about the emotion. Yeah, I guess the emotion, the feeling you can still have the feeling of something, the essence of something, and the principles apply. But when you're not distracted by emotion of history or fear or, the ego parts, then the consistency, the principles still apply, whether you're fasting or not fasting, whether you're moving or still, the principles still apply.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that we could talk about next week, if you want, or if we remember, is Don Juan would talk about things that injure the spirit. And when he was doing things physically that should have been far beyond his years, Don Juan described it not as, because Carlos is like, what do you do? He's like, what do you do? I need to know what you do. Like, what's that magic trick that you're doing? And he's like, no, it's not what I do, it's what I don't do. I'm not doing things that damage my spirit, that damage my body in certain ways. So sometimes it's not what we do, but what we don't do. And those are the things. And typically in the past, we would call those, what did we call those? Destroyers. The different destroyers. I will say also one thing we can talk about next week is it's interesting when I look at existing opposites. And I say existing because I can see it in nature. It's not just in my mind, like infinity and not infinity. It's like, or infinity and finite. It's like, I don't know. That's a tough one. But I can't take out the ego, and I can't take out emotions. And I know this is just a way that we have come to learn to talk in like society. This is, you know, we're removing what we don't want. That is reductionism. And I know that's not necessarily like how you were looking at it, but sometimes it's sneakily how we talk and how we think. Because
Yes, we're human and we can't take the ego
yeah,
out of it, but you can, if you bring your awareness to uh, the fact that it is the ego speaking as opposed to
sure.
what is consistent without the ego speaking, then you can you can have awareness on both of those things and it quiets the distraction of the
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah. And so I think to conclude, and then we could talk about it like again in the future, is the idea is you have what is the opposite of to reduce is to combine. And so combining what seems like contextual opposites creates a new third thing.
Yeah, inclusive. It's like a
Inclusive.
recipe in a soup. You know, if you have too much of one ingredient, you really change the intended
Bingo.
flavor.
Or if you take an
But
ingredient out completely, now it's definitely not the intended flavor.
it's not, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
potato soup anymore without the potatoes. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's about a balance and
Harmonizing.
it's cultivating a balance.
Yep.
You know, the whole the recipe applies to me because and I don't cook much, but I just combine things and stuff them in my mouth. But um the idea of cultivating and simmering and preparing first and which cooks first and which doesn't to get to the desired goal is that feels like a practice. It feels like
Yeah, and I think, you know, learning to redirect those historical emotions, as Ida put it, that's the redirection technique. When we recognize that anything is repetitive, habitual, and it's not filling my bubble of perception with the feelings that I desire. There's something that I'm missing. There's another way I could go about it. I can come back to it later. Intention and will is occurring right now, no matter what I'm doing,
but
if I'm
you're
doing my
not
practice.
removing it. You're not removing it because then
Right.
that's resistance. You're including
Exactly.
it. You're just not putting your attention on it.
It-
Oh, look at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now I'm going to look elsewhere.
Or I change the way that I'm looking at it, because often it's just a matter of perspective at the end of the day. There's no absolute nature to anything that we're seeing. We can't see the absolute nature. We can feel what we can feel. That's the whole human experience. It's just we're feeling what we can feel. And one of the big parts of this practice is making ourselves available to feel a wide variety of things that bring us closer to what we have come to call source or quality, the deep, profound quality in anything and everything is the bottom line. I think that is the bottom line. That is the warrior spirit. That's what it's
Sure.
looking for.
Inclusive is so expansive. Instead
Yeah.
of trying to, you know, heal things and remove things, and it's
Right.
just so much resistance when you just expand your bubble of perception to include it and then change the recipe in terms of how much awareness am I placing on that, or how much attention am I giving it, or what kind of attention am I giving it. I can be
Yeah.
kinder to myself and include some trigger or some childhood memory or whatever. I can
Right.
include it, and then it doesn't have power over me. And it's just part of the tapestry of part of the recipe.
Right. And then you are creating a bubble of perception of adaptability and harmony, learning to you're adaptively harmonizing with controlled abandon. And that creates the mood of the warrior. And that's the mood that I want to fill my bubble of perception with, because it's the root of conscious creation. It's the root of feeling a life of value, of intention, of personal power, and ultimately of purpose, which is to perfect spirit. Not perfect, that's his words. I prefer refine, purify, continue to take out what I have taken on unconsciously. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see you guys next Sunday. Shane is going to
So
chop this whole thing up, and yeah,
so fun. It was so fun. Thanks
good
so
times.
much.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of
I
cool stuff.
enjoyed it. It was lovely. Thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully it helps, and happy meditation. All right. See you
Always.
guys. Bye.
Bye.